Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Monday, October 23rd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Wisconsin game is in 5 days. The game against Michigan in 33 days. While the Ohio State Buckeyes have now moved on to focusing on those Wisconsin Badgers, the Ohio State fan base, they might be taking another day or two to savor that 20-12 victory over Penn State. We're going to be taking a look back at that game through the help of Ohio State head coach Ryan Day, Ohio State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, and Penn State head coach James Franklin, what they had to say after the game. You're going to be hearing directly from all three of those guys. We're going to start with Ryan Day. That was one of the best defensive performances of his time in Columbus. The only touchdown they gave up against an offense that had put up 63 points the week before that and was ranked among the best in the nation. The only touchdown they gave up to that team was in the final minute when they were in prevent defense in a 2-score game. So this was the first question of the day, just sort of Ryan Day's thoughts on that defensive performance. So he's going to have a little bit of diversion about the crowd and the atmosphere at one point, but he'll circle back to the defense.
And they shouldn't have been out there at the end of the game. You know, that was not their fault. I thought, first off, the crowd was tremendous. You know, Gene brought it up. I brought it up. When the shoe's rocking like that, it's difference maker. I thought our players fed off of it. You could tangibly see it on the field. They just fed off the crowd. And we got that sack on JT on that fourth down. That was as loud as I've heard in a long time. And I just felt the toughness, the physicality on defense. We started off with, really stopping the run and then forcing them to throw the ball. And, there's a lot of people who did a lot of great things on defense. But I got to give Jim Knowles a lot of credit and his staff for, the adjustments they've made. That was 2 top 10 wins now in the first 7 games where our defense played really well. And I'm happy for our guys. I'm happy for the success they've had. They came off of the last season with a few scars, just like we all did. But you're starting to see the confidence grow in a big way.
All right, that was a game that grades out as at least an A, maybe an A+ for that Ohio State defense. How about the offense? It was not quite as impressive a day, but again, much like the Penn State offense, they were going up against a very good defense as well. So what did Ryan Day think about the offense's performance?
Yeah, number 1 defense in the country statistically coming in, so we knew it was going to be a little bit that way. I thought there were times where we actually moved the ball okay. Didn't run the ball well enough and didn't get enough explosive plays. We certainly, could use, Trey and Emeka back, but, we had enough to win. And, we don't score there. We had a couple really nice plays designed for Devin, and he rolled the ankle there, and, and so was out for the game. So that kind of threw us off. But, we still can't get in on those 2, 3rd and 4th down plays. That would have been a huge difference maker. But, overall, just, not good enough. But I got to give Marvin Harrison so much credit, to go for 11 catches for 162 and a touchdown when, I would think most teams, the first thing they look at is how do I take away Marvin Harrison? And we targeted him 16 times. I think he was open on most 16 of those plays. And so, he showed up in a big spot today again. And, I would argue to say, I haven't seen everybody play across the country that, it's hard for me to find somebody who's better in the country, So, I don't know, how he gets on these lists or doesn't get on these lists, but to me, he's one of the most special players in the country.
That was not a perfect game by any means for Ohio State quarterback Kyle McCord. You rarely see a college quarterback play a perfect game, so that's probably not a fair standard to hold him to. But he now has a road win over Notre Dame and now a home win over Penn State. So how has Ryan Day seen Kyle McCord progress throughout the season?
He took care of the ball. There was the 1 sack fumble that was returned for a touchdown. So, if it wasn't a hold there, that would have been a whole different game. So we got to get rid of that stuff. It was a hold. I think that's why he double clutched it, but still. There were some really good things. He kept battling in there and, did enough for us to win. But I know we're going to watch this film and there's still going to be things that we need to grow on and then things that we did well that we got to enhance. And, we'll watch the film and on Tuesday I'll have a better assessment of that to figure out if he graded out a champion or not. But, I know we left a lot of plays on the field today on offense and we didn't execute well enough in certain areas. Now, again, number 1 defense in the country. So it's all relative. So we'll look at it. And it was good enough to win, but certainly our defense put us in a great situation on offense to win.
You heard Ryan Day mention there that the defense sort of helped out the offense at some points during the game. And one of the big things that they do to help the offense was the defense just got off the field. Penn State was 1 of 16 on 3rd down. I'm going to say that again, 1 for 16 on 3rd down. And the one that they made came in the final minute of the game. So they were 0 for 15 through the first 59 minutes of the football game. That is crazy against a team of the caliber of Penn State. So how did the Ohio State defense do that?
Yeah, we did. 1 for 16 is just tremendous. And then 1 for 3 on third down. So I guess it's 2 of, 19 for third and fourth downs. Unbelievable job. I think that was the combination of the rush and the coverage. I thought Germaine Mathews played a big-time game for a freshman, having to step up without having Denzel in there. That was big. I'll forget some guys because there was just a lot of great play on defense. But if we can play like this, then that's championship level defense. And if we can keep growing as a team, then we'll be tough to beat here down the road.
Everyone has a different way to look at games. There are people who are going to look at everything through the filter of, well, is this good enough to win the national championship? Is this good enough to beat Michigan? There's just also a certain amount of this time of year, in the words of Al Davis, just win, baby. You just got to go 1-0 each week, and good things eventually will happen. That adds up. This was also, though, a big win for their resume as a college football playoff contender. So Brian Day was asked about that, and his answer sort of goes to a few different places. He sort of meanders through a couple different answers as he's sort of working through it in his head, but I think you're going to find it interesting.
I'm sure there's a couple teams out there, maybe not, that have 2 top 10 victories right now on their resume. And I think the most encouraging thing, although it's like this back and forth, is, we come out of this game thinking that, we probably should have won the game by a few touchdowns at least. So I'm going to wait for that tomorrow. I'm going to enjoy this because it is, you have to find these moments to enjoy, because this is a top 10 win. And if you said, you're going to beat Penn State today 20-12, where do I sign up? This is a good team coming in here, well coached. James does a great job. Manny does a great job on defense. Mike, as we know, does a great job on offense. And, they have good players, NFL players all over the field. So, like you said, the goal is to be 1-0. It doesn't always look pretty at times in these games. I think about the last few games that we've been in against, or not few, since I've been here, the games that we've been in against Penn State, it's like it's kind of ugly early on, and then everything kind of happens in the fourth quarter. I know, Jerry, you mentioned that last year. Like it was 16-14, and the final ended up 41-33 or whatever it was. So we knew we had to get this game into the fourth quarter. Tommy Eichenberg mentioned something in the locker room about how we have to be second half warriors, and if we want to take the next step as a team, we got to finish this thing off the right way. Really good leadership there. I thought Cade Stover's leadership was tremendous. Xavier Johnson had to step up with a Mecca out again. Yeah, I thought he did that. Leadership is important in big games like this.
If this was an A or A+ performance for the Ohio State defense, it was probably an A or A+ performance for Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison as well. He had 11 catches, 10 of them went for first downs. That is nuts. 10 first downs just for one wide receiver. He also set a new Ohio State record, according to spokesman Jerry Emig, with his 5th game in his career with 160 receiving yards. That breaks the old mark, which he had shared with David Boston. So Brian Day was asked, when you have a player like Marvin Harrison Jr., what does he do to get ready? How does he prepare himself for a game like that?
People ask me, a couple of guys in this room when they're in the Woody during a Tuesday, Wednesday, or whenever they're in there, say, who's going to leave first, you or Marvin? I said, I don't know, but I always look before I leave to see. He's in there early in the morning. He's out there late at night. We'll practice, however long we practice. And when practice gets done, I'll go up and eat, and he'll still be out there on the jugs going through the routine. He goes through every play. Just going through it in his head. He'll go out there and throw it with Kyle. Then he'll get on the machine that he has, which you should see this machine. He can actually feed it, and then he presses the button and he shoots it to himself. Coach Mick made a rule that he has to bring somebody with him now, though. He can't just go on his own. But guys have embraced that, and that's a legacy that he'll leave behind as his work ethic.
Now on to Ohio State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. Knowles had an up and down first season in Columbus. It was undoubtedly a significant improvement from the 2021 defense under Kerry Combs. So that was good, but then you ended the season against Michigan and Georgia, and the defense gave up more than 40 points in both of those games, gave up a few too many big plays, and Ohio State lost both of those games. So coming into this year, there was a lot of talk about limiting the big plays and the fact that Knowles' defense typically get better the longer he's been at a school. So what does it mean to him and to the defense to have that kind of performance after the way last year ended?
You're happy for the players, and happy for our head coach and all the fans, and that they now have confidence, that they can win the game on defense. I don't look at stats, but I guess Penn State had a pretty good defense, so we talk to them before the game about, hey, you're not just playing Penn State's offense, you're playing Penn State's defense. You know, if they make one play, we got to make two. If they make two, we got to make three. So it's a sense of maturity, leadership, maybe a little chip on your shoulder, you know, and we've done a lot of work to have everyone have faith in us, for sure.
Talked earlier about how Kyle McCord's performance has improved throughout the course of the season. Where is the defense now as compared to the beginning of the year?
They know the scheme, you know, and when I make adjustments during the week and the things you talked about, that we had to get the stops, we had to get them off schedule, and we make little adjustments in the scheme, they pick up on it, you know, and that's a big deal because winning those downs in a game like that is huge, and that only comes with preparation and with guys who are knowledgeable about the scheme.
One thing that certainly merits mention here is that Ohio State put that performance together against that Penn State offense, and they did it without their top cornerback. Denzel Burke had to sit out the game with an injury. That meant that a true freshman, Germaine Mathews, got thrust into a big spot. You had Jordan Hancock playing outside in Denzel Burke's spot during a lot of situations, but then when they moved Burke inside in passing situations, Germaine Mathews was out there. That is a big spot for a true freshman, and he really held up and really passed that first big test for him.
Yeah, like I said, the kid's got moxie, you know. I don't think he knew how big a moment it was, and that's not a bad thing. You know, he just went out and played, made some tackles, you know, didn't flinch, you know, at the moment of truth, and really, really proud of him. He's a good player.
Ohio State returned its two starting linebackers this year, and that was viewed as what probably was going to be a real strength on the defense with Tommy Eichenberg and Steele Chambers, and then Cody Simon sort of as that third linebacker. And it has sort of been an up and down season for those backers this year. They have had some good moments. They've had some not good moments, and Cody Simon has earned a bigger role as the season has moved along. Saturday against Penn State, all three of those guys had a good game. That was a big day for the linebackers, both against the run and the pass.
That intermediate passing game combined with a really strong running attack, we knew that they were going to be a real focus in terms of making plays. I've always had faith in them, and they're doing the right things. And then it's just it's that competitive excellence. It's showing up when we need them the most, and those guys are veterans, and they showed that we can count on them.
So there was a lot of happiness, a lot of joy in the Ohio State post-game press conference room. I can tell you from having been in the Penn State one, not so much. You have all the same facts being discussed in a very different tone, in a very different side of the conversation. So I want to let you hear just a couple things from James Franklin about some of the things we talked about earlier in the show from the Ohio State perspective. Thought it was just kind of interesting to let you hear what his view on things were. Let's start with the fact that Penn State was 1 of 16 on third downs.
Well, I think the combination of too many third and longs, obvious passing downs, which obviously you want to stay out of and manage. But even when we did have some short yardage situations, they were playing cover zero. We felt like coming into this game, this was one of the better short yardage defenses that we had seen on film. They had a good plan and they executed it well.
It would probably be overly simplistic to take a game which featured two really, really good defenses going head-to-head that was such a low-scoring slugfest for most of the game and boil it down to Ohio State had Marvin Harrison Jr. and Penn State didn't. That's probably oversimplified, but not that oversimplified, because the day of good news for the Ohio State secondary meant a very frustrating day for Penn State's Keandre Lambert-Smith and the rest of the Penn State receivers. Why was that such a frustrating day for Penn State?
Obviously, Keandre is kind of our most veteran guy. Same thing with Trey. Trey's been out for a couple weeks, had him back. Our tight end unit's been able to do that at times, but I think their combination of man coverage and the pressures they were bringing, they were getting there a half second before we were able to get open, and we weren't able to make plays in those scenarios.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Always interesting to hear from the opposing coaching staff. I feel like that's something that it gives you a little bit of a different perspective on the stuff you're hearing from the Ohio State coaching staff. So if you like hearing from the opposing coaching staff or the Ohio State coaching staff or Ohio State players, you would love our post-game show. We do those after every game at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Have Mark and Devin go on immediately after the game and give you sort of their instant reaction. You get to hear the Ohio State press conference with Ryan Day, interviews with players. Usually we'll give you some of the opposing coach as well. And then Tony Girdham and I will do our Buckeye Weekly instant reaction show immediately after that. It's usually 2+ hours of live post-game coverage, right? Quite a festive evening. Madtown is a fun place to watch a football game. If you've not been up there, might consider making that trip this weekend if you have the time and the inclination to do so. We will be there. We will have full coverage for you of the Buckeyes and the Badgers Saturday night in Madison. I can't wait. Should be a fun game. Should be a fun home stretch of the college football season, regular season for the Buckeyes, as we are about to turn the corner into November already. Somehow, I don't know how that's happening. Here we are, already almost in November. Buckeyes still undefeated. Michigan still undefeated. Both teams right at the top of the college football polls. Man, oh man, are we setting up for a fun home stretch of the college football season. Make sure you join us at BuckeyeHuddle.com for all of that. It should be a very active week as we talk Buckeyes and Badgers. It should be a very active week with recruiting talk, as the Buckeyes had a huge weekend of visitors for that Penn State game. Plenty of scheme, X's and O's talk there as well on our huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Hope to see you there. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.